It all really came from this one Reddit post that came up over the weekend. Essentially, it goes like this. Beware the Webtoon Originals contract. So they were offered a contract from Webtoon, and they couldn't believe what they were reading, so they contacted a few original creators to see if their contract was in other people's contracts, and they were shocked and appalled by what they saw. And here's what they said they saw. They said that in the contract, it said Webtoon would automatically have the ability to buy 100% of my IP. Previous Webtoon Originals contracts didn't have this in their contract at all, so I believe it's a new thing. Apparently, this is so if any series happens to do very, very well, Webtoon can just snatch the entire IP out from under the creator for a very low fee, and unfortunately, this has already happened to some creators. 2, they allege that Webtoon would own their print publishing rights, something that normally goes for 5 to 6 figures in terms of United States dollars. Webtoon would be paying them $2,000 for, and would have automatic ownership, and it's just a huge ripoff. 3, Webtoon would own all merchandising rights. They wouldn't be allowed to make the merch of their own. They wouldn't be allowed to sell merch of their own. And 4, the most egregious thing in the claim is Webtoon would become their agent for print publishing and multimedia deal, which is incredibly unethical, which is true. Now, these are the claims of a Reddit post where we got no evidence of what happened, of the contract, or any other information. There was then another Reddit post, like a day later, and I'm gonna just bring this one up. I got to speak to the creator, from which I gained a lot of information. But it's something I wanna start by saying in this stream. This post is, in my opinion, not very good. I read this. The creator from this also sent me some documentation for me to read. I can't show you any of this because it's all off record, but I read this and read their contract, etc. And this is not what it seems to me. I want to start with this second one because to me, it's a very easy conversation to have. So in this second post, this dude was talking about how they shelled out money for a lawyer and to review their contract, and they realized that Webtoon has an option to purchase their entire IP. Now, I found out through talking to the creator who was behind this post that was a lie. From what I have been able to glean, all the information that I gained from the original poster of this Reddit post, it is untrue that Webtoon is able to purchase the entirety of their originals IP. I have seen their contract. I've looked at it. At most, Webtoon can purchase about 40% of their IP. And in fact, from a conversation I had with an insider, Webtoon often only ever really takes 30%. Now, I want to address a question before we go anything else. Who would sign that? You often let your publisher to hold a certain percentage of your IP because that gives them the investment to invest in you further. Because then they don't feel like you're going to pull everything out from under them, okay? That's what that's for. 2, 100% is not even allowed. 100% is 100% allowed. IPs are often sold and taken, but something I got from a Webtoon insider. Webtoon says that they maintain that they only want a minority stake. So other than the 40%, does Webtoon still take the merchandise rights? Yes. Does Webtoon take print publishing rights? Kind of. And I want to talk about that a little bit with this person's contract. Webtoon takes print publishing rights in a really weird way. Webtoon pays the really low fee because they don't actually buy your print publishing rights. They buy the rights to sell your print publishing rights to other people, which can also include Webtoon One-Pat Studios. The idea being that Webtoon has experience in the entertainment industry. Webtoon can get you a better deal because instead of you negotiating as yourself, Webtoon is negotiating as the big company. And so they can get you, quote unquote, better deals because of their position in the industry. That's what they're basically telling you to bank on by buying the ability to sell your print rights to actual printing. Remember, Webtoon is a minority stakeholder in all of these situations. So unless you say yes, nothing happens. You are the majority owner of the IP. They basically act as like a licensing company. Basically, they're saying, we do all this work so you don't have to. Anyway, let's get to the main post. That main Reddit post came out. You've probably seen the Comics Beat article about it. Probably seen a lot of stuff. Much like the Comics Beat article, I reached out to Webtoon about the main Reddit post. The one where the creator says that Webtoon wants to act as their agent. On Wednesday, in the middle of the day, Webtoon just called me. And I had a long conversation with somebody in Webtoon. And then they sent me the same document they basically sent Comics Beat. And I'm gonna bring this up to you because I think there is some truth in it. I also think that it's a little fucking weaselly. Just a little weaselly in the way it words things. Webtoon says, 1, our contracts do not allow us to take over a creator's underlying IP, exercise rights without additional negotiation and compensation. A big thing in the conversation with Webtoon was this constant thread of people get paid, so it's not a problem. That was a lot of what they said. Webtoon has never attempted to buy 100% of the underlying IP from any originals creator, they claim. No, the only content that would be owned by Webtoon 100% would be a series that they produce and develop in-house. In all of their contracts, creators maintain ownership of their IP. That means they have to own over 50%. Often, 70% is what I was told is normal for a creator to own. Webtoon invests in a creator's work and prioritizes paying creators every stage of the relationship relationship, including payments to help creators start with a financial cushion and or production payments for work delivered prior to a series launch, all without any guarantee of a return or overall series performance. This is another thing that Webtoon's very big on. Webtoon's very big on of saying we invest in unproven IP, and so we're taking a very big risk, and often we don't get our money back. And so we make sure people get paid at every turn, and when we pay them, we make sure that they get paid early, quickly, and efficiently. That's what they've been saying. Like, the person who fucking wrote that, learn to read your contract. Unless you might have really concrete evidence here that I don't see, and I would love to see the concrete evidence. Again, all under NDA, all under, like, all off record. Like, I've seen more than enough contracts at this point. I'm not here to make your day worse. I just want to be able to visually see evidence, because nothing correlates with this 100% that I've ever seen. I'm happy to look at any contract and pay for them to be reviewed by a lawyer with my own money. I think in this very specific instance that some people just did not understand their contract. And that happens. It's complicated, right? Because the way Webtoon words it in the contract is terrible. But it's the nature of contract law and entertainment contract law that it's worded the way it is. It's trying to be hyper specific, but in a way that is incredibly obtuse to the average reader. It's why they tell you to read all of your contract. You need to read all of a contract to actually understand what it says. Because like, otherwise you're just picking up bits and pieces that aren't made to be read in isolation. So this Reddit post is a lie. The one that says, I just found out that Webtoon can purchase my entire originals IP for pennies. I'm gonna make absolute dog shit to spite it. This Reddit post is partially a lie. It's not a complete lie, but it's partially a lie. It's a person misunderstanding their contract and overstating the truth. By saying their entire original IP can be purchased for pennies is a lie. They know that 100% of their IP cannot be purchased. They even admitted that to me in our conversation. Can't show you them, but they did. So this started out with a lie, right? This wasn't for Reddit gold. I think that the thing is, this person just had a very strong emotional reaction to the previous post. They felt cheated out of the thing that they've been working hard on. They felt like they were gonna have their entire world taken out from under them, and they freaked out and they made this post. So the next claim, Webtoon would own my print publishing rights. This is the claim that the actual like Reddit post made. Webtoon's response to this is that Webtoon acquires an option to acquire the print publishing rights for a limited amount of time, but does not outright own the print publishing rights unless the option is exercised. So when you sign the Webtoon Originals contract, but you don't actually give them your print publishing rights in any capacity immediately. What happens in the initial instance, you give Webtoon what's called an option. I want you to think of an option not as like an actual purchase thing, but as the ability to make a purchase later. So Webtoon will pay you a fee for the ability to buy something from you at a later date instead of you being able to sell it to anybody else. When the option is exercised, Webtoon will be able to buy a certain percentage of your IP, of your intellectual property. Now, the typical percentage Webtoon can buy that I have seen in contracts is 30% as of recently. Webtoon says they often only stick to this. They can buy an additional 10% at a later date if they wish to. But to do all of this, they basically need to send you a message that says, hey, I want to exercise my option to buy 30%. After 3 days, they'll purchase the 30%. They'll give you an amount of money. I've seen $15,000, I've seen $20,000, I've seen $30,000. So, you know, the bigger and more impactful your IP is, the more money they can buy. And the 30% is permanent. This is a permanent IPX option purchase, okay? It doesn't give them control over your IP as a whole, but it gives them certain rights, and it means that they get to be in the room for certain conversations. Webtoon basically says, hey, they do not acquire the print publishing right. They acquire the option, and they do not own those rights unless they exercise their option, which they can just not do. For context, they regularly don't exercise their options. A lot of comics don't have their options exercised, and it's not unusual. But it also is not unusual for them to exercise it. It's like a 50-50, I guess, depending on how successful you are. And it's a very standard traditional book publishing thing. Now, when I was speaking to Webtoon, they said this. The reason they take these rights is because people who print merch, like Made by Hello or all the other IP companies, they want those rights because they don't want to be competing with the creator on the same merch. And also because it helps them guarantee certain amount. Webtoon doesn't always want the creator designing the merch, because designing the merch would basically like cut the merch producer out of a piece of the pie. Like, let me give you an example. Let's say Webtoon agreed to pay the merch company $40 for every $100 that the merch makes. The merch company is taking that $40 because they designed the merch and they printed the merch. If the creator were to make, for example, design the merch, suddenly the merch company can only take 30% for making the merch. They would have lost the design permissions, they would have lost the design money, and then also, like, they may have gotten a product that they could work with in that, like, you know, the creator designed something that was possible for them to print, but that creator wouldn't have made something that was optimal for them to make or print. Think of it like this. I can design a really kick-ass shirt, hoodie, sweater, whatever, but the printer has like things that they can do easily and things that are complex. If they design the creator's merch for the creator, they'll design merch that's easy for the printer to print and make and produce at the lowest cost. If the creator designs the merch, it could skew that pricing. And also, again, they lose that 10%, that extra $10 that they would have gotten for having designed the merch too. It's not really in the merch company's benefit to do this. Anyway, final Reddit claim from the initial Reddit post. Webtoon would become my agent for print publishing and multimedia deals. All right, let's fucking talk about this, because I actually have a lot to say. One, this claim is insane. I don't think you guys understand what this claim really is saying, because we're only thinking about it from a creator lens, but like, ignore the creator lens. I hate to say it, we're gonna fucking ignore the creator lens. This claim is FTC like activatable. What's the FTC? The Federal Trade Commission. What did they do? They literally regulate business activity. One of the big things they do is they make sure that companies do not act in a way that is considered anti-competitive. Remember when I said that Webtoon's got those fat stacks of cash? They use it to offer what I call an impossible product. What I mean is the Webtoon app gets to pay creators big money, and it gets to basically take a loss constantly. Webtoon even then proceeds to buy creators from other competing services with impossible deals. So if you don't know about this, early on in Webtoon's career, they paid a bunch of people who made webcomics on their own websites to move everything over to Webtoon. All their comedy comics. So Webtoon would then buy other outside creators and basically make it so that they're the only place that you can go to. They do this with contracts that are impossible for anyone to be able to like match. This behavior is monopolistic, but it's not anti-competitive, it's just monopolistic. But if Webtoon did all of that and then at the end of everything, they told the creators, hey, here's a contract for you. You can't work with Tapas ever in your life. That's anti-competitive. You see what I'm saying? You see the difference? The first thing is monopolistic. It's swinging your dick of money. The second thing where you block people from being able to engage with competition is anti-competitive. Why that matters is in this bit here, when it says Webtoon will become my agent for print publishing and multimedia deals, it would put Webtoon in a crazy level of power relative to every single competitor they have. They would be not just swinging a dick, they'll be swinging the biggest of dicks. Massive dick swinging to go for 1,000,000 miles. This claim is terrifying, and it's not true. Essentially, this is somebody misunderstanding the business partnership section and taking it to mean something that it doesn't. That's what that last claim is. That's the entire claim section. Now, I want to say something. Like, me debunking this overall post does not change something that somebody said earlier, that Rainbow Pegasus said earlier, that while these details may not be 100% true, the vibes are off. And it's because of the nature of the current state of comics. Every major player in comics is a corporate entity trying to make their own cash. And I think that the problem is there is no company that truly advocates for the things that creators need. Now, just because no one in the space is currently ideal doesn't mean that it's never going to be good. It's better than it's ever been as an industry because we can finally make fucking money. Something that Liga Squiggus asked me, do I think they're moving towards a certain direction? Yeah, they're moving towards the fucking corporatization of comics. But what's really good about an industry that ends up going towards corporatization is that it means that there's more liquid revenue flowing in the industry. Why does that fucking matter? Why does that matter? It means that alternatives to these problems can arise very quickly. People who have better, longer-term understandings of the industry and longer-term visions can show up, because that's what this industry is going to get. Now it has the money behind it.